Welcome to the Card Text. This is the yet another episode of the Card Text, our first episode for the new year. I had to take a little break there for a little while, but now we're back. So unfortunately, we won't have a Rogue episode. We usually do like Card Takes. So in lieu of that, we're gonna give some short thoughts on Rogue. But joining me, as usual, is Scott and Theorel.
Hello,
everybody.
Okay, so our first subject is Rogue. She hasn't come out yet, right? She's supposed to come out at the end of this month, along with Gambit.
Yes.
Okay, so quick thoughts on Rogue, what we know so far, and I don't know if anybody's actually had a chance to play her yet. I haven't.
Neither have I. I did look over her cards at one point.
The main thing I've heard about Rogue, as far as speculation and gameplay, is that she has a little bit of a rough economy, right? She doesn't really have a resource generator.
Yeah.
And I think there's a little bit of clunkiness in regard to her main card, right? Her main touched ability, or touched card.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had a little bit of trouble determining if there's a significant amount of clunkiness to her versus just there's ideas of what you might like to be able to do with her ability of taking characters' traits, and a lack of kind of ability to follow through on that. Like, just a matter of you hear about a character that can take on traits, so you start looking through your cards and seeing what all the traits are and thinking of ways you could build around it, and that just doesn't really work. Or just, she works fine with the abilities she has, but can't really do much beyond that.
Right. Yeah, I think I agree with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the issue is that characters don't tend to have traits that currently cards reference very often. So you can't build around them. There are a few, but it's not enough to hang a deck around.
Still, her other cards, I think, do make her good. Maybe not as great as some of the other X-Men, but she still seems like she'll be pretty good. But I appreciate that they did include that touched ability in there, because it's something that's associated with Rogue, the character, pretty strongly.
The superpower adaptation is a cool card, even if it doesn't quite work.
No, it's very cool. Yeah, I mean, it has a lot of potential there, right? Because you could just take a bunch of cards from another player.
Yeah.
I know there was one person in the Discord was like having a field day with it because he was listing out a bunch of the possible combinations you could do with it. So that right there is, worth it, I think.
But it is definitely a multiplayer card.
True, very true. All right, so unless we have any more thoughts about Rogue, we can move on to next subject.
There's one thing. I'm surprised people think she has or will have difficulties with her economy, because almost all of her signature cards are superpower traded.
Right.
So you just run Death Focus and you've got a 1-cost reduction on all of them. Superpower adaptation is 0 costed, so it doesn't affect that. But it makes Bulletproof Bell a 0, Energy Transfer a 1, Southern Cross a 2. But as I said, I've not played her, so I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point. So keep that in mind if anybody's out there looking to play it with some cost reducers. You have, I'm sorry, what was it called again?
Deft Focus.
Doesn't quite work with Bulletproof Bell because it's defense. Def Focus is an action, so
True. Yeah.
Bring your turn. So it's mostly the Going Rogue, Southern Cross, and Energy Transfer. Just still plenty of cards. But yeah, I think I almost think the resource issue is sort of in the same vein of if you're trying to build a trait focused deck, you run out of space. Try and put resource stuff in it too.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's the issue, the core of it. Move on to our next subject. So I do want to talk about tough. So what exactly, to be honest, I haven't been following too closely with all of the ruling stuffs. So I had heard that Tough had changed, and then it flip flopped, or what is going on with Tough? Is it working like it's always been working, more or less, or what's?
Yes and no. I think in like 99% of the cases, it works how it always has done. There was a very brief window in which it seemed to not work the same way, and yet they overturned the rulings that indicated that. But it's linked to the separation of the two parts of damage, the dealing and the taking, because Tough, as written in 1.4, is triggered off the character taking damage, and the latest rulings on Tough are saying that it's now, or it will be, when we get the next revision, triggered off of damage being dealt to a character.
Right, and that's a whole other thing, but it is related. We should probably mention that. So take and deal are now distinct, I guess, concepts or terms in the game, whereas before take and deal was kind of, is that interchangeable? Is that the right word to use?
Yeah, they were the kind of the two sides of the same thing. But now, yes, they seem to be separating them. Whether they've just kind of stretched the thing or it's actually two different things isn't yet entirely clear.
Right. My understanding is deal is like when you set damage that is going to be applied next to some character, and then take is for when you actually apply that damage to that character. This is the distinction that I'm understanding with these two terms.
Sort of, yes. They, in the Arkham Horror LCG, they do have that specific distinction of you have two steps to damage. I can't remember the exact terms they use, but it's like you assign it and then you apply it, and it looks like deal and take are those two. So deal is kind of equivalent to assign, and take is equivalent to the damage being applied. But they haven't explicitly said that yet.
Right, there's an idea that they're splitting it, but the exact mechanics of how it's being split are still not 100% clear. And there is some disagreement about whether, exactly what that means. Not like negative disagreement, but just discussion around exactly how split they are. Is it all the way to the level of kind of a timing split where you deal damage and go through everything until you have an amount of damage being dealt that's defined and know what that is, and then it moves into being taken? Or is it something a little bit more kind of all jumbled up together? It's just a lot of that's unclear. If they're just different terminology, or if it's really different steps, is kind of, I think, where we're not quite sure.
But yeah, that's why Tough is basically getting an errata from, I believe it's when a character would take damage to when a character would, I guess, be dealt damage. Is that how it would be phrased?
I think that's likely the wording they're going for.
Yes. Yeah, again, they haven't explicitly stated what the new definition of Tough is.
It should be that Tough is going to work the same way Tough has always worked. And so, relative to all other effects, Tough is actually the thing that's not changing.
In effect, yeah.
If it's moving forward the way that it sounds like it's moving forward, Tough will have the same priority over all damage that it has always had. And it's just a matter of, there were some times there where it seemed like it might not have that priority, and certain effects might precede it. And if you go back through the last 3 months of Tough and damage and all of the rules that have been happening, it might seem like Tough's changed a lot. But if you go like 4 or 5 months ago or 6 months ago, whenever this whole thing started, maybe a year ago, I don't really remember. But if you go back a year and you look at how Tough worked, it works exactly the same.
Yep, I agree with that. I think we've already mentioned, but just to reiterate a bit, there was that one ruling that kind of was weird, and kind of remove Tuff's priority. But it was a mistake, and I was glad to hear that it was a mistake, and they reversed it. So we're all good now. I think that's it for the Tuff stuff. Any other closing thoughts on that situation?
I don't think so.
No? Okay. So we'll move on to our next subject, which is the state of the game, state of Marvel Champions. So, there hasn't been any real news, right? Except for that box release, right? That was official, where they had was it the Wave 1 heroes in one box by itself?
Yes. Yeah. It's everything post-core up to Hulk. So, yeah.
That's not happening in America, right?
I'm not sure.
Has that even been officially announced with an article? Because I haven't seen one, but then I've not been looking because I've got all of the packs anyway.
I remember seeing somebody posted a message from some FFG person that said that was not it was not coming to all countries, and I think there was maybe even a specific question about if it was coming to the United States, and that it was answered and that it was not.
Interesting.
May have just invented that if neither of you saw it.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
Be that as it may, maybe that box is coming out in the US, maybe it's only in certain other countries. But that's the only news that I have heard. And apart from that, it's been kind of very quiet the past, has it been a couple of months now?
When was the last article we got? Yeah, so the last article was 17th of November, and it was the Rogue announcement.
So yeah, that's a while to go without any news. And right now we're just waiting on their hero packs to come out. Rogue and Gambit. That's supposed to be the end of this month, the end of February, right? Around the 20th. Wow, that's...
Yes. So it'll be... Because it's usually the Wednesday in the States, isn't it? So it'll be the 22nd.
Yeah, I think so.
And I think in the UK we're getting it the 24th because ours always drops on the Friday.
And so, do you guys find the lack of news concerning at all?
No.
Discouraging, maybe. But not concerning.
But we've known since I can't remember when it was when they first said it, but we know that there's more than one mutants wave, and I think it was Caleb said at Gen Con that there will be 3. So we know there's stuff coming. They just haven't announced it yet for whatever reason.
I just don't know the reason.
It feels like there must have been a delay somewhere.
Yeah.
That was, from a corporate standpoint or from a production standpoint, licensing.
It's probably just a lull in announcements, or like Theo said, some hiccup with distribution or something.
Yeah, something with distribution or production, supply line issues, because those are things that happen.
Pretty common these days.
So someone suggested it might be corporate in terms of that they want to get a better release schedule for the boxes, like that they have months that they want to be releasing and they're not releasing on those months currently. They might have pushed it back a month to get onto that schedule that they would prefer.
Yeah, that's right, because the releases had changed from being monthly to bi-monthly, and if they wanted to move that again, then it would take a couple more months, I'm assuming, to reschedule it.
Plausible that there's design stuff going on. I mean, they haven't mentioned anything, but if they're, it's always a possibility that when they were getting through the final design process that they saw something that they wanted to change and it held up releases.
Okay, still keeping in with the state of the game subject. Have you guys been playing regularly? Have you been playing with other people regularly, solo regularly? How are your play patterns?
I play with my son once a week, generally. We have his sister's orchestra practice, and we play Marvel Champions while she's in rehearsal before he goes in. It's just the right amount of time for a Marvel Champions game, so it works out. But I have not been playing solo since last time I recorded a video, which was sometime back in November, maybe.
And Scott.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time I played solo. But I also play most weeks, and it's either 3 or 4 player depending on who turns up. And yeah, we not long ago finished the Mutant Genesis campaign and then played through the Mojo campaign, and then did the HUD. So yeah, that's like 4 or 5 weeks.
And I myself have been playing pretty much every weekend with a group online. But I haven't been playing by myself or with people here at home as much. But I will say the last release, the Mojo, I found it pretty fun, pretty entertaining, and I would want to go back and play it at least a couple more times, I think. Did you all have the same feeling about Mojo?
Yes, if not more strongly. I need to play it again, but I think it's probably my favourite of the standalone scenario packs. Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and when we played the HUD, we used some of the Mojo modulars because they're just brilliant.
I have not caught up, so I have not gotten any. I've gotten, I guess, just Cyclops and Phoenix since Mutant Genesis came out, so there's a lull in my catching up process of Marvel Champions releases.
Okay, no worries. Yeah, I thought it was. We should probably mention this was also the first release from. Gosh, I'm blanking on his last name. Tony
Banshee. He's been with FFG for a long time.
But he's a new addition to the Marvel Champions development group.
Yeah. Tony Fanchi. And I think it was the last thing that Michael worked on as well.
I don't think it was the last thing Michael worked on. It was probably the penultimate. I think there's one more thing that would have his hand in it, right? And that should be the next.
I think the next set of heroes, at least, if not the next box, also.
Yes,
that's my understanding. I think probably Mojo through the end of the next cycle was kind of a transition with Boggs and Tony working together.
Okay, still keeping with the state of the game stuff. The RRG, we were told a little while ago through rules responses that they were working on 1.5, right? So I feel like it's kind of overdue, and I think there's a few other people that feel the same way. How do you guys feel? Do you think it is overdue? And how do you think the new 1.5 will impact? I don't know, everything, I guess.
I'm not sure I would use the word overdue, but yeah, I certainly would have liked to have had it by now. It's tying back to the not having any news. That's another possibility, is that they're working on 1.5 and they want to release that before they release the next wave. And it's just finalizing that is actually delaying things.
Especially if some of these new rulings that we've gotten are relevant to cards that are being released, that might them feel more urgency about that.
Yeah, they possibly will be wanting to make sure they've got like an FAQ section that covers the next probably box and the couple of hero packs immediately after that, something like that, possibly.
Yeah, I think there's still a few things that still need to be added to the FAQ, right? There's a couple things missing from there. I can't remember specifically what, but I know there was a couple that were needed.
I will say, if it does come out before the next release, I mean, whenever it comes out, really, if if there is a sense of it having looked ahead to the next releases that come afterwards, and it feels like, oh, hey, these cards make sense because of things that they put in the rules, it would definitely improve my attitude towards the overall situation with the rules and the card texts that have, compared to Genesis, which kind of killed a lot of my hope for the way that things were going. It just felt like all the cards, every hero came out, it felt like, well, this doesn't work with the rules that we have. There was just something, some question that we had each time. Felt like.
Yeah, Mutant Genesis felt like there was some mistakes that they kind of had to, I guess, reconcile, and that it could be the case that they saw that and wanted to take a step back and revisit the rules and what they could do to make it smoother over the next couple of releases. That would be nice.
That would be very encouraging.
What are you guys expecting for the next release? I know there was some speculation about what it might be. What do you guys think it would be, and what would you like it to be?
I'm just expecting more X-Men, just kind of filling out the rest of the cast of highly popular X-Men characters that are normal X-Men, not drifting off into X-Force or other groups.
Yeah, I think the same pretty much. I think so. Again, going back to what has been said, if I remember rightly, they used specifically the word mutants rather than X-Men, and so that gives me the impression that we're going to get at least one wave that is non-X-Men mutants. But like Theorel, I expect the next box will be more X-Men.
Same here. I do expect more X-Men. I kind of want it to be some of the characters from the X-Force, at least. Some of the ones I would recognize, like Strong Guy, or I believe Deadpool is also in X-Force, unless I'm misremembering, but those kind of characters. Multiple Man. Is Multiple Man X-Factor?
X-Factor, yeah.
Oh, okay. Or X-Factor, that'd be fun.
I think X-Force is expected because of Forge. He interacts with X-Force traded cards.
Right.
It seems silly if there are none. But I mean, mostly I want Nightcrawler, and I think if there's anybody else, X-Men wise, I'm really need to release this hero, but it's pretty much Nightcrawler, and once we have Nightcrawler, I'm good.
Nice.
A Beast and some others would be fun, but
oh yeah, I'm really expecting Beast as well. Anticipating him. Scott, any specific characters that you have in mind?
No, as I think I said on a previous recording, I am not really an X-Men fan, so
I gotta send you some comic books. Okay. I guess we're closing out now. I don't have any other subjects listed here, so we'll close out with any final thoughts on anything we brought up or anything you would all like to mention.
We could end it with Steel Fist. Steel Fist was a great ruling.
Go ahead. So we'll talk about.
You don't like that ruling. They're all rulings that somebody doesn't like. They ruled that Steel Fist is they are going to remove the deal 5 damage to an enemy as the cost. It's no longer going to be a cost. It's going to say you may remove a tough status to stun and confuse that enemy, which means that it will work more like every other card in the game instead of having this weird deal 5 damage cost thing that executes even if you're stunned, that maybe it doesn't get paid when you don't deal the full amount of damage, or whatever other problems might come from dealing damage as a cost. They all get taken away. It just works like a card that does 5 damage, take away a tough status to stun and confuse an enemy.
Mm-hmm. And this was the wording I think I originally, back before I had a chance to actually play Colossus, was in favor of as well. But after having played him quite a few times. I felt like the advantage that Steel Fist gave you, where you could always deal the 5 damage regardless of being stunned, was nice in compensation for some of the slowdown that he could have when he doesn't have a couple of toughs on him to play his other cards. So I felt like that this change might slow him down a little bit more. Maybe that is the case, maybe it isn't, but yeah, it's just how I feel. Scott, you have any thoughts on Steel Fist?
I think it's a good change. Yeah, I've not played Colossus, but when we did our Mutant Genesis run through, one of my friends played him, and there was the occasional game where he couldn't get fully set up, and he was short on having toughs for his various effects that require them. But most of the time, it was not a problem, and stunned was no more of a bump in the road for him than it is for any other hero, really. Oh, well, not any other. Some don't need to, can just ignore a stunt, but because they don't really attack. But yeah, any attacking hero, they have to deal with stun pretty much the same way, doing something, usually a basic attack to get rid of it, and that doesn't slow down Colossus that much. Being without toughs can slow him down a lot, but when you get your board state set up, it's usually not a problem. I can't remember the names of the cards, because there's the one that gets you a card draw when you lose a tough, and then there's the other one that puts toughs back on him, and you get those set up, and you're going through your deck so quickly that being able to get back into having the right things out, it's not as much of a problem as I think you think it is.
Yeah, that's fair. I think I just probably like that advantage, and
yeah, it was nice to be able to just always deal 5 damage, whether you were stunned or
yeah,
but
that's because he was very punchy that way, right? I could always count on dealing that.
yeah,
5 and 5 again. I did like that, but yeah, I think one of the things that I think Sko said in another conversation about this was that it's not, Steel Fist is not tied to his attack, like say like a character like Hulk, where you have to use the attack to use the event, which is much more of a hindrance here. I guess Colossus could attack first with his basic attack and then use the event, so that's much less of an obstacle. All right, I think we should close it out there. All right, thanks for listening, and thanks for joining me, Scott, Theorel.
Yep, cheers, Bob.
We hope that was informative. Thanks to my distinguished colleagues, Theorel and Scott, for joining. And remember, when you would rather not read the rules reference, listen to the card text instead.